Hello world, and welcome to the inaugural episode of The Dom Show. I'm your host, Dominic DeMaria, and today I have a very special guest who is none other than my dad, but many of you know him as Dr. Bob, either as a patient, watching his own TV show, or the various other media platforms that he has been on throughout his career. And the reason why I'm doing this is obviously for you, the viewer, to get to know Dr. Bob more on a personal level, but I am doing my MBA thesis on Dr. Bob. So without further ado, the guest of the show, Dr. Bob, how are you doing today?
First time, I never thought I'd be interviewed by my own son on TV, so I know we're going to have a lot of information and probably learn a lot about myself because I didn't even answer the questions for him, so he doesn't even know what I'm going to say.
Yes, that is true, because I didn't want to know, actually.
That's good.
But, so let's get to the first question. So, we didn't even address, like, how I'm supposed to address you. So,
Dr. Bob.
Dr. Bob, okay. So, I just wanted to make sure. So, Dr. Bob, when did you decide to become a chiropractor?
Well, it really is amazing. I was a sophomore in high school, taking a technical drawing class, and my friends were talking about what they were going to do for their life, and I decided I wanted to go to the Navy, come back, become a fireman, and do carpentry work on the side. But I took a walk down to the guidance counselor office and I thumbed up through and I saw a book from the National College of Chiropractic, opened up the book, paged through it, saw some anatomy courses, etc. And I thought, you know what, this sounds like it's a pretty good idea. And I went home and I told my parents I'm going to be a chiropractor. And that was it.
Okay. Then when you decided that, what were the steps that you took in order to achieve that goal?
Well, I really studied the catalog, so for anybody out here right now that's a guidance counselor on a high school or college level, that catalog was really important. So I looked through the catalog to find out exactly what hours I needed, and I had a conversation with my dad because of the requirements that I needed at that time. I decided to go to school locally, saving money so I wouldn't have to go away to a four-year school, and I went to a Lorain County Community College, two-year degree in general studies, and then I continued on going to school in Lombard, Illinois.
Okay. And when you were in the stages of becoming a chiropractor and when you achieved your status of an actual doctor, did you have any mentors along the way?
Well, you know, when I came back to our community, one of the comments I received from a gentleman whose name was Earl Nightingale. He used to have a magazine called Insight. And Earl Nightingale, in one of his magazines, said, you know what, you should interview some of the people in your community that are very successful. So when I came home, I interviewed what I thought were the most successful people in our community, and they just told me to really focus on what specialty that I could go into and study very hard and become the very best at what you can do. And I attended different classes and seminars along the way to help improve my business skills and learning skills about health.
Okay. And then, so you're now a chiropractor, and like many of us that are in our mid-20s, we have the itch to start our own business, but you actually started your business when you were in your very early 20s. Can you tell us a little bit about your first day on the job?
Well, I actually started the business when I was 23 years old.
Yes.
And I went to school straight through, because you might wonder how could anybody be that young. And I did go to school year-round for my college. And I can tell you the very first day that I was there, I came home for lunch or dinner, and I was actually sick to my stomach because I realized that this was real. I wasn't in the clinic anymore, nobody was telling me what to do, and I figured I had to be good. If I wasn't good at what I was doing, I wouldn't be eating. So I came home, and your mom and I were married at that time. She kind of looked at me and said, like, what is going on here? And I said, I don't know, I don't feel good. So I didn't really have much of a choice. I had to make it happen. I did.
How many patients did you have in your first day?
On our very first day in the office, we had actually 5 new patients, and none of them were relatives. They were all individuals, and that we met, we really marketed very heavy.
Okay. And what inspired you to pursue natural care and the drugless approach that you are so passionate about now?
Well, I think what happened along just listening to what's going on with real people in the world today, I knew that people were taking medication. I know that people didn't feel good, and there had to be something better than taking a prescription medication. We never, even as kids, took a lot of different medications, so that wasn't just a part of our vocabulary. It wasn't even a part of our mindset. And I wanted to do something that I could empower people with information so their own bodies could heal themselves. And it's worked very successfully, especially with what's going on today in the real world. People are concerned about their health. They don't know, they almost don't trust their conventional medical doctor because they don't want to be on drugs and they don't want to have surgery.
Okay. And then talking about, more of the drugless approach, when did you see the American public start to have a more positive, accepting viewpoint towards wellness care?
I would have to say that they really started to make a decision to empower themselves right around the turn of the millennium. There was a different mindset that was going on between the 90s and 2000. And I believe that TV had a lot to do with it, but probably the single most important factor that changed our world was the internet. Because in 1995 is when I got my first email address, my first web page, and that was many, many years ago, and that's when we started then. And once people had access, so right now watching us, you could either Google my name, and at the present time my name goes down 34 deep, which is amazing. I never even thought about that. So you could Google anything you want, get information, and people started to learn because their doctors were trying to tell them things before, and it wasn't always necessarily the truth.
Okay. And you have been quite successful in your practices. And what do you think is the most important health solution that you have personally formulated that has transformed your patients' lives?
I think probably one of the most significant words and phrases I'll say to people is that they can and they are empowered to make decisions. But I believe that there's something that I fondly call Dr. Bob's ABCs. A half an apple every day. You can lower your cholesterol 13% by eating a half an apple every day. A red apple versus a green, because green stagnates your digestion in your colon. A third cup of beets every day lowers your cholesterol 40%. If any of you watch me right now, little floaters in front of your eyes, we call those vitreous floaters. Eat a medium-sized carrot every day or 4 or 5 baby carrots. Those floaters will go away, I guarantee it.
Okay. And what would you consider some of your personal attributes that you can help the world through drugless care?
I think as far as personally, also in my training is knowledge. Knowledge is power. And once you can empower people with knowledge that they're able to make choices, it's almost like it creates a magnetism. There's energy that comes out. Like, I'm passionate about what I'm doing because somebody watching us right now, Dominic, somewhere in the world is going to get excited about getting healthy. And I've been blessed to be able to tie nuggets in from every area that I've read or listened to on CDs. I've become a student myself, and I'm trying to do my very best to educate people on health. I just feel like David and Goliath sometimes. It's really a tremendous feeling.
Okay. And you're talking about knowledge, but in the world of the wellness industry, there are quite a few big names out there. Dr. Oz, Dr. Chopra, even Dr. Colbert, who is Joyce Meyer's doctor.
Right.
How would you say that you personally differentiate yourself from other well-known wellness?
Well, I think one of the biggest areas, Dominic, that's so different about what I do versus what they have done is I've been involved in natural health care since 1974. And I was always a natural health care provider before it was popular to be a natural health care provider. And I think those gentlemen you mentioned are very fine. I think that they have mentioned and they have brought the whole world up to the understanding of what natural care is, but they were still trained medically. So it's not uncommon for them to mention some kind of prescription medication and even some over-the-counter remedies. Well, my passion is if I can teach you what to do. An example is you don't really need to take an aspirin every day. Why? Because you eat the right foods, your body won't have the inflammation that requires the aspirin. So all of my training has always been from the very beginning, what can I help the patient do from the inside out?
Okay. And you have written a few books, quite a few. And what motivated you to write the books in the order that they're in?
Well, it's basically because of knowledge. I learned about trans fat back in 1995. I was aware that ADHD was quite popular. I took information from 2 different sources, one about trans fat and one about brain health, and came up with the concept that ADHD is directly caused, from my observation, mainly from trans fat or partially hydrogenated oils, and understanding the role of fat metabolism in a person's body. Just that nugget alone, that trans fat interrupts normal fat in the brain, has permeated every other one of my books. So just learning that and then all the other information